Absolutely, definitely have a different perspective, but I know that we're going to have a similar perspective for this next guy. Trenton Simpson from Clemson. We talked very highly of him going into the year because of how freaking talented he is, how great of an athlete he is. He actually bulked up a little bit. He looks bigger than he did last season, and his listed weight on the Clemson website is higher than it was last season. So right now he's listed at 6'3", 240 pounds. I think he looks at least 235. This is a much bigger player, and they were having him play a little bit more inside this year, it felt like. But still, the one thing you get with the Trenton Simpson, who is a very springy, explosive, quick to accelerate athlete like him playing linebacker, they're able to play him all over their defense. He played off the edge. He was an edge rusher. He played in the middle of a defense. He blitzed from the middle of the field. He also just played as a normal Mike or Will backer in the middle of the field. And then they also sometimes bumped him out like we used to see with Isaiah Simmons, where maybe he's playing a little bit in the slot. He's covering guys. He played all over the place. And that multiplicity as a defender, as a linebacker, is so freaking valuable, which I get excited watching a guy like this, knowing the impact that he can have for a defense at the next level. And hopefully he's in a situation where it's creative enough to know how to effectively use him. And you don't just say, hey, this is a Will backer. You're only going to play Will backer, and we're not going to put you anywhere else.
Trenton Simpson's a freak show, man. Like, it's the easiest way to put it, right? Like you mentioned, 6'3", listed at 240. He was about 220, 225 last season, and definitely looks in that 235 plus range. I agree with you on that. And I think he's got good length for the position, but the thing that sets him apart, Joe, and maybe we should talk about this for a second before I kind of get into my spiel, is what type of combine is this guy going to have, man? Like,
oh my God.
He's going to run the 4.3s, right? Like, I think he can. Like, high 4.3s, like 4.38 or something like that at 235 pounds. Like, that's possible, right? And he's probably going to have vertical, some stupid number, broad, some stupid number. I think he might have one of the more impressive combines we have ever seen from a linebacker position, personally.
See, and I know that this might be a little bit of a reach, but I think physically with his testing numbers, like, he's got the same build as Micah Parsons. Mm-hmm. He's not as much of an edge rusher as Micah Parsons, but like I think physically he's going to have very similar testing numbers to Parsons, who they didn't have the combine his year. Yeah. I don't remember if he had a pro day or not.
He did. He ran like 4.39 or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So I don't think there's going to be much of a difference in terms of like physical traits. I think that they're very similar players now that he's up to 240. I don't think it's a stretch to say that, right?
You know what's the weird part about Micah Parsons, Joe, is that he's turned into such a good pass rusher despite not having long arms. If you look up his arm length, he's got like sub 32-inch arms, man. Like, you would think that he's got really good length, but I think Trenton Simpson's a little bit of a longer player comparative to Micah Parsons, but I agree. I think athletically they're similar football players. Am I saying that he'll be as impactful as Micah Parsons? Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is that freak show-wise, from a physical perspective, dude has everything you look for, man. I mean, the ability for him to play that Isaiah Simmons role as kind of that display Sam in their 4-2-5 alignment is incredible as a sophomore, right? Like, you saw that ability to transition in space, explode and tackle the football, play in space a ton. It's really great stuff. The one thing, though, Joe, that I'll say is that I think that he took a nice step forward from a traditional linebacker perspective this year, because you saw glimpses of it in 2021, but you just didn't see it enough. I think he has some physicality to him. I think he has pretty good instincts for the position. But the one thing that I'll say this, and this is kind of the same impact that it had on Isaiah Simmons, is that Clemson not playing Trenton Simpson in a traditional role, playing more of a true Mike linebacker and Will linebacker for maybe multiple seasons, I think does hurt him a little bit early in his career.
Yeah.
We've seen it with Isaiah Simmons, right? Isaiah Simmons didn't really have a home with the Cardinals early on. He's starting to play a lot better now because he's starting to really get the hang of playing that position. But I think that sometimes when you're that versatile move piece that can do so much, sometimes that stunts growth a little bit, right? Because you don't ask a guy to just do a specific role or play a specific position well. So Trenton Simpson's still a little bit raw as a linebacker, but all the traits are there, man. He's got physicality, he's got explosiveness, he's got everything you need, change of direction, diagnostic skills are improving. He could be a really special player if he lands in the right situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, the one thing for me too, sometimes when you have these crazy athletes, the instincts are frustrating, but I was impressed with his ability to navigate in traffic, to handle blockers, and then just to find the football. Like, he knows how to get his hands dirty, and he knows how to make plays on the ball, and the acceleration to close and finish on the football is what's super promising. And like, look, Ryan, I'm not going to beat around the bush. This is a top 15 pick. This is a top 15 pick. If Micah Parsons goes where he does, maybe we make the argument that Trenton Simpson's like a hair behind him, but we had less tape on Micah Parsons to an extent because he sat out his final year. He was a little bit more of a question mark. I think we also know for a fact that Trenton Simpson could be impactful early on, depending on his destination. But for me, again, top 15 pick. I think if a team needs a plug-and-play linebacker, this should be the number one linebacker in the class, and he is going to be a fantastic, fantastic player at the next level.
Yeah, we see him pretty similarly. I was going to say a top 20 pick, so we're in the same ballpark, right? I think that the three-down ability he has, the impact he can make as a Swiss Army knife on the second level is, I mean, it's bonkers, right? In a modern NFL game that values manufacturing, creating space, and also manipulating space as much as you can, you don't see 235 plus pound guys that move like this, right? And they change direction like that. He's a rare athlete at the position. And I agree that the reason that I'm not worried about the transition as much as maybe as Isaiah Simmons, for instance, is that when you see these type of athletes, Joe, that played in space a ton, the one thing about playing in space is that, yes, there is a bigger onus on being able to close quickly, right? But you also have a lot more space. So you're working for more depth. So you have more time to read and react, right? You don't have to be a super reactive player because, there's eye candy and you have to be able to diagnose correctly, but you have time working from depth. Working from a linebacker position, you don't have as much time, right? You have to be a little more reactionary working from the second level comparative to an overhang position. And I think that the thing that I like about Trenton Simpson is that he is pretty reactionary in the sense that he gets to balance well, like he navigates traffic well. Those things are innate abilities that I think he has on the second level. So I'm right there with you, man. I think he's a top 20 football player. I think you can make an argument that he's a top 10 just talent in this class, maybe a top 5 talent in this class for what he does at his position. If he hits, this is an all-pro and this is a superstar. If he doesn't hit, I think he's still a good football player because the athleticism is just bonkers on the second level.
Yeah, very, very fun player. And I think he is somebody, like we said earlier, post-combine is going to be a big name that's brought up on a reoccurring basis, but will be one of the gems of this class that we're just talking about is like, hey, who's going to draft Trenton Simpson? Who's going to get this freaky athlete? And we might be talking about him very highly in a couple of years, depending on the situation that he ends up in. And if maybe he's like Micah Parsons and he goes to a team that has a super creative and intelligent defensive coordinator like Dan Quinn, it could be lights out for whatever team gets him because you're going to get some really positive results.
Well,
I think it's good. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Can I say that Clemson Wes Goodwin, their defensive coordinator, man, he's not even going to lose Trenton Simpson. He's also going to lose Miles Murphy and Tyler Davis and Brian Brzee and KJ Henry. Man, their front seven is being depleted this year. And Trenton Simpson obviously is among the biggest losses there, obviously.
They also did not reload the same way that they did last time. So it's going to be a little interesting to watch what happens there. Folks, that's a good note to wrap us up on. At Joe DeLeone, at Rise and Draft. Make sure you head on over to betonline.ag and use promo code BELIEVE to get that 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. We'll be back with more Scouting Report episodes. Enjoy the rest of your week.